Welcome to Lock and Key Unlocked, a podcast about Lock and Key on Netflix and the books by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about the Season 2 premiere of Lock and Key on Netflix, appropriately titled The Premiere, the first episode.
Did you see how they did that?
Mm-hmm. They really worked that out very nicely.
Yeah, it's very good. And with this, it's unlocked. We've unlocked all of this. It's all unlocked for us, for you.
So, word of warning here, we're going to kind of broad strokes talk about our feelings on the kickoff of Season 2 here. We're going to talk about some big plot points in the episode. So go and stream it on Netflix right now. Go and watch it. It's all live. You're probably ahead of us at this point. You're probably speed watching it before you even came to the podcast. But regardless, before... the recap, the very broad strokes here, very short, is we get reintroduced to the world of Matheson, Massachusetts. We get reintroduced to the Locke kids. They're several months down the road of the events of last season, which let them think they dealt with Dodge, but in fact, the opposite happened. They ended up throwing their gym teacher, Ellie, through the black door. Dodge escaped in the form of Gabe, who is dating Kinsey. And not only that, Eden also got infected with a demon from the black door, unbeknownst to them. So the two of them are working together. Meanwhile, Tyler is dating Jackie. They're very happy there. And Bodhi is doing his Bodhi thing as usual. Nina, meanwhile, and we get a nice reminder of this throughout the episode, but can't remember any of the magic or anything that happened because adults cannot do that. Something that actually ties into Jackie's storyline that we'll get to in a moment.
Oh, man.
But, and the last thing is Scott, our resident filmmaker in Matheson, got kind of jilted by Kinsey as she started to date and choose Gabe here towards
kind of jilted, Alex?
Very jilted. Very jilted. Very jilted.
The most jilted. Heartbroken.
Yes.
It's a lot to go through,
And the other thing that we should just recap really quickly is back in the 1700s, there was this thing called the Revolutionary War, which was a fight between England and America. Basically, there was a bunch of tea that got spilled, not the gossipy kind, and then they had a big fight about it, and ultimately America won, bitches.
Whoa.
Wow.
There you go. Go watch Hamilton. I don't know. Figure it out. We're not a Hamilton podcast.
Alex, maybe open a book. How about open a book for a change?
No. Watch Hamilton on Disney Plus.
Mr. Content over here. Books were the original television.
Did you just listen to one of your kids recap a report card or something?
I listened to one of my kids recap a report card. They were like A, B plus, C, F.
Because
A.
Shit.
Yeah. Recollection,
of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So we're going to talk about the big moments of the episode because lots of things happen here, and we definitely should talk about that big, wild beginning scene. But first of all, getting back into the show. Obviously, we're huge fans of the comics. Really enjoyed the first season of the show as well. But what did you think about this first episode? Is the magic still there, Pete?
Oh, I think so. This did a great job of getting you excited for more, kind of getting you back into the swing of things. Who's where, who's dating who, what's going on, all the hot goss, all the spilling of the tea.
All the spilled revolutionary tea.
Yep. Tea is important for a lot of people, it turns out. I thought I was very excited throughout this episode. I even loved the moment where, the two characters were like, hey, you coming to the premiere? And they just kind of slowly cheated out to camera.
Mm-hmm.
You get it?
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio pops up, does the pointing meme thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe they got him.
Yeah, good for him. Hey, he's on Netflix. He's doing that Netflix movie with Adam McKay, so it's probably just one day on set, What about you, Justin? What was your take on this? How'd you feel about this first episode?
I thought it was really good. I think this show does a great job of sort of filling you in on what's going on without it being super expositional. It's just, hey, catch up. Here's all the relationships. This show also does a good job of making me stressed when it comes to, look how happy everyone is. And you just feel the potential darkness creeping in at the borders. And especially, I think, Nina's position feels the most like, something's... The fact that she, twice in this episode, is everyone's outwardly doing working with the keys, doing magic in front of her, and both times she's sort of like is in this sort of gaslit fog. I feel like that's going to be something's going to change there.
I agree with you guys. I really thought this was a very strong premiere here. And like you were saying, Justin, there's this thing we talk about with comic books all the time, that back in the day, they used to sneak these exposition things, these ways, these cues of letting you know who the characters are and what the situations are into the book. That's kind of been foregone as things are aiming more towards graphic novels, collections, etc. But they do that so well in this episode, getting you caught up without doing a recap, without doing an info dump, letting you know where all of the characters are, which I was very impressed by. And the other thing that's very exciting about this is something that we speculated a bit about both on our preview podcast for this and also, I think, even way back in the season 1 finale. But it really feels like we're in uncharted territory here for Locke and Key. We obviously know the comic books really, really well, but we're seeing stuff here that we've never seen before and situations that we've never seen before. And that's neat.
It's exciting because it feels like the the story that we know and love, but kind of with a different take on it. Also, I wanted to see the full movie of the splattering. Looked like a lot of fun. Release
it online. Yeah. It's Netflix. It's a streaming service. You can do whatever you want. There's no rules. Just right.
Wow, Alex, really talking about it like you're inside the Netflix compound. Talking about Leo Dio working there. Have you been Netflixed?
I actually have. Reed Hastings, the head of Netflix, is right here on the podcast. Hello, glad to be here, guys.
Oh, that's right. He's always underwater when he talks.
I'm stuck in a red envelope.
Oh, my God.
He's still pushing the DVD mailing stuff.
He
right?
is. Did you know they still have that, actually? They still do DVD mailers? That's wild.
I was driving this summer in upstate New York, and I passed a guy putting a Netflix DVD in his mailbox. I was like, holy shit, click.
You swerved and hit him, right?
Yes. It wasn't an accident.
Excuse me,
I was like,
this man clearly died 20 years ago.
Yeah, out of the way, but it was a ghost, 100%.
I was going to say, you should have checked because, excuse me, sir, what year do you think this is?
Yeah. Well, let's kick it off talking about the past stuff, because this is something that shows up in the main Lock and Key series and is explored a lot in the Golden Age books that take not side to the series, but go back in time to show different aspects of the Lock and Key universe that don't specifically focus on the Key kids. I thought this was a great, interesting way of kicking off the season that I was completely surprised by.
Yeah, I agree. It was really cool. It got us, sort of put us in an unsettled place. Who are these people? What are they doing? We have to remember the Redcoats were the British.
The Redcoats, yeah.
We're not. Bad guys. Yeah. They're the bad guys.
Even though that actor, who I recognized from a ton of things, was a Redcoat, I had to root against him.
Yeah, in the interest of full honesty, I saw that and I was like, oh, it's the revolutionaries. And then I caught myself when they were fighting the other guys and I was like, nope, that's the British.
Straight up, I did too. I was like, ooh, look, revolutionaries. Wait, they're the bad ones. Great. We're all our brains are being pickled by comics. That's our lives.
100%. What did you think of one thing we get to see here that I thought was really fascinating, potentially for going forward? It's something we don't really see in the books as well, is when that last Redcoat gets hit by one of the magic bullets by one of the demons for the Black Door, he gets a demon face. Like, he gets sharp fangs and veiny stuff. What do you think about that effect and potentially what it means for Gabe and Eden?
I wondered, it definitely opens some questions where I'm like, is that the demon's choice? Was it just an earlier iteration where they hadn't been in humans as much? So they were like, I should be a demon. And then they got outside and was like, everyone knows I'm a demon. So it was like they've gotten smarter since then or something. But it was a cool moment in the show and a great
to answer your question, though, Alex, I feel like it was really a cool effect, and I thought it worked really well. And I got real excited at the end by that kind of reveal of the key, because I was hoping that monster on the key would kind of match up to that kind of first monster we saw, but not really the case.
No, I think at the end that's the Bowser key. It unlocks Bowser from the Super Mario games, so that's gonna be a fun twist.
That's gonna be
Who's doing his voice? Is it Jack Black is doing his voice in the movie? So.
It's going to be a lot of early Jack Black shabadoos.
Yes. I think, just to throw something out there and then we can move on from the scene, the demon teeth, I would venture a guess, are actually just regular teeth because it's the 1700s and most of them didn't brush their teeth at that point. So that was just the guy's regular teeth that he was showing.
I think they brush their teeth so much that it ground them down into little white, little stalagmites on the top and bottom of your mouth.
It does also, mind you, point to a slight but significant difference between the way the TV show treats the Black Door and the way the comic books treat the Black Door. The comic books, it's Lovecraft, Massachusetts, so it was much more H.P. Lovecraft, otherworldly Cthulhu type thing going on. Never called them demons in that book or anything like that. Here, I think they are going the other direction. Obviously, they changed it to Matheson because Lovecraft has not aged well in terms of everybody's opinion of him. But I think they are going for something a little more monstrous, a little more demonic with the look and the feel of the Whispering Iron.
Yeah, and we get to see the Iron sort of take the forefront here, both in this opening credit sequence, and then we jump right into Gabe and Eden at the Black Gate as well, looking for some iron, and then that builds to, as Pete said, some real smelting happening here. Everyone's favorite skill.
Now, we get to see them, not to interrupt you, Pete, we get to see them smelt it, but do you think they dealt it?
Oh, come on, dude.
In this season, they will be dealing it.
Oh, okay. They'll be dealing with it. They'll be delting with it later on in the season.
Exactly.
If we could please move on. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think the idea of, like, showing us this old-timey kind of war and then being like... they're kind of doing old-timey blacksmithing with this episode, so there was a fun kind of thread of that throughout. I'm just, Justin talks about stressed, and the mom is just stressing me out so much. We'll get into it more, but I'm just so worried about the mom and why nobody's talking to her, and maybe, after... nobody noticed the creepy popcorn guy was gone. I mean, the guy was hitting on everybody.
Well, let's get to that in a little bit, maybe. But I do think what you're speaking to, Pete, is how casual the Locke family is with all the keys, which I thought was really smart, and it just shows how they are both in a better position than they were last season and a much worse position. We see Tyler and Kinsey just like passing keys back and forth. Kinsey has a whole world built up in her head that she is very comfortable in. Bodhi's just like using the Hercules key, lifting stuff around, doing it in front of his mom because clearly it's happened so many times that he knows it's not a danger.
Well, that said, I felt so awful for Nina in that moment because the way they do the effect, it's like her brain is breaking. So I know as a kid, Bodhi's age, you don't necessarily realize that necessarily, maybe on some level, but you're like, no, I'm just using this. She's going to forget the magic. But it seems so hurtful for Nina. It's awful to watch.
Yeah, and it's go ahead.
Yeah, it's just absolutely heartbreaking because like you see her kind of like reset and then kind of go back into this kind of like, hey, don't forget this, and it was just such a heartbreaking thing, and we kind of get it like from Bodhi's perspective. So, and then it's there's a lot of really well done little things here that are kind of paying off. Even this whole thing about them being kids and casual with the keys, but the one person who's already showing signs of being a grown up, she's organized. She understands the importance of things. And like, so it's such a cool kind of like thing that we're seeing happen in front of us.
Well, and that big difference between in the comics when Nina can't see the magic, it's not as emotional for us, the reader, and than it is here as a viewer. You really feel sorry for her because she can't keep the thoughts in her head. And to your point, Alex, it is weird that Bodhi still is so comfortable with it. But I think he's like, there's no consequence to this. Mom just goes back to being normal right afterward. But I think maybe, because Pete, you mentioned Jackie, there's this great scene later on when Tyler uses the flame key to light the fire and she can't see it. Really, I mean, she doesn't understand.
Matchstick key, right?
Matchstick key, sorry. And Tyler's talking about the key. She doesn't know what he's talking about. And then he's like, you just saw me use it. And she's like, yeah. She sort of comes out of it. But you see sort of the flickering of her growing up. And then at the end of the episode, we get the moment where Tyler brings to Kinsey, heartbroken. And Kinsey's like, we're gonna solve this. And so maybe there's a way that Nina gets welcomed into the magic side of the show over the course of the season.
I did think. Oh, I was just going to say on the Jackie note, I think it's an interesting choice here that does clearly lead to a plot line going forward and some, like you talked about, some great scenes with Jackie and Tyler. But the idea that it isn't an all at once thing is a little bit of a weird choice to me.
I like it.
You like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like growing up, I feel like
Sure.
you don't realize you grew up until you look back. In the moment, it happens and sort of fits and starts. And I think the threat of Jackie losing it is, sad for Tyler, but it's really him losing it. He says, I'm going to be 18 in 3 months, I think he says.
Again, like you're saying, I think it's a choice that they made where they almost treat it like teen dementia in a certain way, where it's just you're forgetting these things a little bit at a time. But I always think about it as magic rules. So it'd be stroke of midnight on your 18th birthday. That's when you completely forget everything. Oh. So again, they're going for this choice. It was a little bit of a weird one for me, but clearly it worked for you.
I like it better because I think it maps better with what it's like to sort of lose magic as a kid when you're like, you don't believe in fairies or Santa Claus or whatever. It happens sort of over time, and then eventually you're like, yeah, no, I don't believe in any of that anymore.
For me, it happened at the stroke of midnight on my 18th birthday. When did it happen for you guys?
No, but I also like the fact that it was like this thing of like everybody changes differently. People grow up at different times. Certain things can kind of like really kind of make somebody grow up faster than others. So I do like this kind of like fluidity or the way that they're kind of, it happens differently with different people. So I think it's very interesting kind of thing that is underneath all of this terror. And it's just a little frustrating though that like after a family goes through all this madness, that there isn't kind of things in place. I mean, Bodhi is the voice of reason that like, hey guys, we can't just be calm and cash. We've got to start planning because like shit's coming. Like we can't just
There's a giant rat skull here. We got to get ready.
Yeah, guys, like let's be ready for shit. And it's interesting because the youngest one is being the smartest,
What is the giant rat skull, lads? Prediction?
I think a rat, they kind of like made somebody giant with one of the keys or whatever, and it was a rat, and then, somebody.
Maybe it's a prehistoric rat.
Ooh.
Right?
Nice.
And totally unrelated to the keys in any way.
Yeah, somebody found it and was like,
Just
this is cool.
Yeah, I was like, this is cool. Put it up there. What was I? On the Bodhi, Kinsey, Tyler front, I understand what you're saying, Pete, but I do actually like this position. It's almost a reset for them in a certain way. This is what they were like at the beginning when Bodhi was saying, hey, there's these magical keys. They do all these things. And Tyler and Kinsey were like, yeah, whatever. We don't care. Leave us alone, little kid. So they think they've won. They think they've beaten Dodge. They have no reason to think that they didn't have this epic victory at the end of the first season. Bodhi is the one that is still a kid, and he still wants to explore this magic, and he still wants to find out that stuff. So I don't think they're back to ground zero at this point, but I do think it makes sense to me that it is still Bodhi, the one who is pushing all of this stuff forward.
And
well,
speaking of pushing, like, why didn't anybody tell Bodhi that, like, sometimes you put the legs of a couch once it's inside a room if it can't fucking fit through the door? I mean, mom's just letting them just, throw furniture around, not tell them how furniture works.
That's a skill that you lose when you turn 18. You lose magic, but you learn how to move stuff through different rooms.
I hired Bodhi, actually. I haven't talked about this on the podcast before, but I hired Bodhi when I moved apartments back last year, and he wrecked the shit out of this place.
Yeah.
It was, I demanded a refund.
Wow.
He did not give me one.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
He was terrified of your keys as well. I love the moment when they're all together having that conversation about the rat skull. And I think, to your point, Alex, Bodhi says something that I think is maybe the sort of
key.
Really capture. Yep. Try not to use the word key. Really captures the moment that they're dealing with. We think we know everything, but there's so much more we don't know. And I think he gets that because he was the first to sort of sniff out Dodge from the jump. And he was the most scared by it, as he says later, when I think Nina's like, hey, that's pretty scary, right? He's like, I've seen worse.
Yeah.
Lady. I've dealt with some pretty fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
To walk through, let's talk through a couple of plot lines here and just our impressions of them. again, totally original, not in the comic books at all. Gabe and Eden, how are we feeling about this in toto? These characters working together, now two villains on the show.
Not good.
Not good? Oh, you don't think it's good for the Locke kids?
Yeah.
All right.
Just
it's your opinion.
It's scaring me.
Here's the thing. I do think it's good because they're super scary at the top of this episode. Working together, they kill those like Coast Guard guys or whatever.
Cave Rangers?
Yeah.
Cave Rangers.
Hey, you kids! This place floods. Oh no, it's flooding. We're all in danger.
We have security jackets on and flashlights.
But they seem very, and throughout the episode, they take that guy's house to use as their smelting and delting area. But then we get this moment where they're not getting along. Eden's like, hey, Gabe/Dodge, why are you so close with Kinsey? It feels like it's going to be a problem. Gabe does not like that. Then that puts a little wedge between them. Eden goes and kills a dude in public, and they almost get caught. They do get caught by Nina. Gabe also knows that the magic doesn't work with her. So I think they're going to be split and actually make it harder for the demonic plans to come to fruition.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff that's very interesting going on with these two characters, not least of which that Gabe seems to actually have feelings for Kinsey. Like there's a moment where he's clearly seeing what's happening with Scott and he's getting annoyed about it. But at the same time, we reestablish the fact that he's an echo. He's essentially a ghost of Lucas Caravaggio, from back in the day, and doesn't exist in the same way that Eden does, who is a human body taken over one by these demons. There's also a hierarchy established here very clearly when Gabe turns back into Dodge very briefly, and we see how terrified Eden is specifically of Dodge, not in the way that she is necessarily of Gabe. So again, there's a lot of complex, interesting things going on in this relationship that I liked quite a bit. And I thought almost, not completely, but almost lopsided the episode a little bit because there was so much interesting stuff going on with him and so many complicated character dynamics that everybody else is having just a pleasant, good time living in the Locke, in the key house, just sort of chilling out there, that it pulled focus a little bit in the episode.
Yeah, but I like that. I like that split focus because the end of season 1 was like, hey, watch out. These characters are going to be a big deal. And it's like, they should be a big deal. They're scary. And that's where the stuff's like the Locks don't know shit about what's going on. So we got to follow the people that are making moves. I also thought, did you guys think that Gabe grew more evil? Like the actor looks more evil than he did last season, which I think is, I don't know if that's a purposeful choice or how, but I'm like, this guy's less twerpy and more like evil.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that they're kind of leaning into, which is cool. It really makes a big difference from the kind of person that we know from the first season. So it's a cool part. But, you brought up kind of like big deals for the season. I'm surprised we haven't talked about it. They kind of teased us with a brand new character that's coming. Gracie, who I cannot wait to spend more time with. This is very exciting. Pontiac GTO, and we're going to get to learn about cars and work on it. This is going to be exciting.
Man. Character is a strong word to describe a vehicle that they're not even going to drive, maybe.
You respect Gracie, all right? Don't you backtalk her.
Gracie.
Well, this is something we should talk about. It comes directly from the comics. Is Duncan eventually gets a talking car, and the series takes a turn about halfway through where it becomes less about Key House and more about them driving around the country solving mysteries.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff, though. It's really emotional.
Locke and car. Gonna be fun.
Cars also take keys, famously.
Yeah. They finally get the hardest key of all to operate is the key to your vehicle.
I did also like the choice, though, more seriously, to bring Duncan into the fold and literally have him move into Key House. I think that brings him into the show in a big way rather than every episode being like, hey, I'm here just for the weekend. Well, gone now. Oh, now I'm back. So that figures that out.
Hey, I'm getting married. All right, see you later.
Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, I was going to say one little nod, and this is something that we as comic readers know, and I hope they do, the line that Duncan has when they're in the movie theater. he says, "Oh, your father did theater in high school."
Yeah.
And there's this great photograph from the comics, and then eventually we see that sort of whole scene play out of the previous generation of key users and how they use it in their high school theater production.
Of
and
the
I'm
Tempest,
hoping,
right?
Yeah,
of
the
Tempest,
yeah.
Shakespeare's Tempest, and I'm hoping we're going to get to see.
Well,
Thank you
that's-
for specifying that it was Shakespeare's Tempest, by the way.
There are other Tempests. What we want to
Okay.
hear? Read? You think they're doing Pete's Tempest? 'Cause I've read Pete's Tempest.
Come on, it's real heady.
It's about a temp in an office who is like the most temp, the Tempest.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of that, that's what I thought when I saw the title, The Premiere. I immediately thought of the Tempest production, and I thought maybe, but then I was like, oh no, the splattering.
No, it was the splattering.
But I thought maybe because we got a flashback of the 1700s there, that maybe we'd also get a flashback of that premiere. But yeah, very, if they bring that in from the comics, that was such a legendary panel that kind of foreshadowed so many things to come. It'll be interesting to see if that is something they use.
Yeah, I did like the fact that everybody in town came out for this big premiere, despite the, I assume, tourist couple kind of slamming it earlier on, thinking it was for a new lobster restaurant. But what's his name? The friend of theirs.
Was a funny bit.
Yeah, the friend of theirs who is clearly 45 years old. I'm forgetting his name. What is arranging everything?
Doug?
Doug,
The guy
yes.
on the
Yes,
gets
Doug
killed
did a
in the
really
movie.
good job. Yeah, Doug did a really good job setting everything up, which, of course, he's a full-grown adult, so obviously
come
has a
on,
lot of
dude, you don't
connections
know
there.
that.
You're
Come on, dude,
after
don't
Doug.
judge Doug.
No, I like Doug. I like Doug.
Doug's great, and he got like a big round of applause in the movie and stuff. It was cool.
Yeah, but the whole town came out with her. They got a red carpet premiere. That was very fun. I definitely want one of those
Step in her
claws. Those
Oh,
foam
I want one of those
claws.
foam claws for sure. How about that a moment where Brody was like, "Hey, you're my favorite monster," and I was like, "Oh God, that couldn't be more on the nose than you."
Was that right before the fist bump?
Yeah.
Yes, and the line that was the most scary part of that whole exchange, "You have to kill me in the sequel."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was like, oh no, don't say that.
We'll
to me. He wants
definitely
to
do
do
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice writing for that moment.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but like when there was that moment in the movie theater where like the soda got spilled and then it was like, who's going to go, Brody or the mom? I was disappointed that it was the mom because I was like, if Brody goes,
Bodie.
Bodie, sorry. Bodie
Tom
goes,
Brady. Tom Brady and
Tom Brady.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the GOAT.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, I think it was one of those things where I wanted the kid to go because he would retain the information. He would not hold on to it or forget about it. Like he would constantly bring it up because, like, we got to know who's bad and who's good early on here if we're going to survive this season.
But Gabe and Eden may have tried to kill Bodie right then if he had gone.
Yeah, but I'm hoping maybe he's got the Hercules belt on. You know what I mean? And he can take him out.
Thank you for
Hercules.
pronouncing it. Hercules.
Interesting pronunciation. So the a couple other things about that whole scene. How about that heel turn from Carl, the vendor at the
Oh my
movie
God.
place?
He went
He was
hard
like,
from complimenting Nita and her being like, "Oh, that's very nice," to him being like, "Your ass looks nice in the jeans."
It was like, oh, I can't say your ass is nice anymore. I was like, dude,
Oh, kill that guy.
Calm down. Just let her buy her nachos.
it was just funny to have a
14 hot
character.
dogs.
Have a character. Yeah, it is a lot of hot dogs.
No, it was
I would
plenty.
question
It was
that as
The
well.
perfect amount.
Also,
3?
why did he immediately jump to, "Are those all for you?" Because there's no reason to think that. Like,
Well,
What do
I
you
think
mean,
because
no reason?
when you
how many hot dogs do
hesitate,
you order at a time?
when you hesitate on your order,
many. Usually 13
had-
tops.
when you hesitate in your order, when you're like, I guess I'll have, that means it's for you.
Oh,
If you're like, I need 3 hot dogs, 2 sodas, and the popcorn, that's for someone else as well. But if you're like,
I have a
because you were
related
thinking about
question. I have a related question. How long is the splattering? Like, what's the running time of that movie?
Right, 'cause it
Because
really
we see
dropped
the
off
first
quick.
scene,
Yep.
then they spill the soda. Nina goes out there, and movie's immediately over. Like right after that point.
well, I think it's a short film. I think it's a 4-minute film.
Probably. There's that
I
first
hope
scene,
they
and that's
release
about
it
how
because
far
I'd
they
love
got.
to see all of it.
I would too.
Me too. Perfect for festivals.
Yes. to walk back and not to walk through every plot point, but to just kind of look through what happened here because there are so many interesting one-off scenes. I did want to bring up Kinsey's head at this point is very different from how we saw it last season. We talked about this a little bit with the teaser trailer, but she is on a swan boat. There's a whole lake in there. I believe last season it was a mall, so it's changed exponentially. But not only that, she gets great phone reception in there and can scroll Instagram, which is very cool.
That is cool. You know, that's the future.
Do you think you have bad reception in your head?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of reception I have in my head. I've never been in my head.
I figure it would be like the best reception.
Oh, really?
But I
think in the Instagram in your head, can you like they still have like likes in there, and you can sort of you don't have to go through all the like pain in the ass of resizing and stuff.
Oh man, that would be great. That would be great.
That would be.
Yeah, and you can change a photo. You could switch a photo if you want without deleting the whole post.
Oh man,
I really did love that swan scene. Her just kind of in her happy place, you know, switching songs on the iPod and walking on water. I thought that was such a cool, because we've seen Kinsey in some rough spots, so it's nice that at least at the start of the season to see her kind of get a little bliss before all hell breaks loose.
Plus, nice at the end of the episode with the Scott. She can't get Scott out of her head, literally.
Hey, Rocky Road. Come on. That was beautiful.
Well, let's cut into that then and talk about this love triangle going on here. Who do you prefer, Kinsey and Scott or Kinsey and Gabe?
Come on. That's not even a question.
I don't know. They're all cute together.
I think Gabe's got a lot of initiative, and I think he's going to go far.
Scott!
He's willing to do anything.
Yeah, I like Gabe. Like you said, he's really gotten an upgrade this season. He looks cute in the lobster costume. I think it's going to work out.
Nope.
I think it's going to work out.
Can we talk about Scott's big, like, sit down at the party where he was like, hey, I want to talk to you? And then we all got our hopes up that he was going to be like, hey, you know, it's kind of obvious, but I'm in love with you. Instead, I
think that's what he was doing anyway, right? He was doing I'm leaving town forever, ... anything you want to say in return.
Oh, you think that?
And I think Kinsey, in all honesty, I think Kinsey does want to say it in return. It's clear Kinsey likes Scott and feels more for Scott than she feels for Gabe at this point. When Gabe reveals,
hope so.
Yes, you'd hope so, but also, like when Gabe says that he quit the ice cream shop, she's clearly upset and destroyed by this.
Yeah.
So I think she looks forward to seeing him, and when Gabe kisses her, it's gross.
It's so gross.
Kissing in general, pretty gross. I've never done it, but I've seen a lot of other people do it on TV and otherwise, and no thanks, not for
Kissing
me.
in general?
Yeah. Ugh.
The general, that's how you get car insurance?
You're the general, the tiny animated insurance salesperson.
Yeah, that's right.
You see a lot of people kissing the general, a lot of tongue. Those commercials with Shaq and the general where they're just tongue kissing the whole time.
It's great.
There's got to be a better way of getting insurance.
It makes me want to buy insurance, though, every time
I
really? Back out. Yeah.
I did switch to the general after Shaq fully necked with the general. His helmet fell off. Yeah. It was intense.
It was intense.
Shaq said he's never loved before.
I was very excited for a second when Scott was like, I'm going to Rochester, and then ... England. I was like, oh, come on, man. It's so
come on, could have gotten a garbage plate, man.
Baby. Come on, go to the Lilac Festival. It'll be fun.
For those of you who don't know Pete LePage, the person who's just speaking, he is from Rochester, New York, not known as a film hub.
It kind of is, man. There's a lot of great films coming out of there. Also, home of Kodak, which made
Kodak
films.
film.
So go fuck yourself with it.
Those are blank. Kodak film is notably blank. That's not. They're not turning out films.
As we're continuing to walk in here, we get a brief scene with Daniel, the cop from last season, bringing in an enormous sack of tomatoes over to Nina's house.
So many tomatoes.
Too many tomatoes.
And how about those chunky ass carrots?
Oh my God, those are huge! I thought I was the only one that noticed that.
Well, I was like, "What are you making here? You can't. Those are not dippable."
Got some carrot keys or some.
Yeah,
keys.
Maybe she's slicing them into rounds and then using them as bread for the tomatoes or something like that.
She could. Those were basically Crocs. She could put her feet in some of those carrots.
Can we talk about though?
Cut them smaller, Nina.
We are, Pete. I know what you're about to say, and yes, we're already talking about the carrots and tomatoes. Go ahead.
Are you listening? We're talking about how chunky those carrots were, dude.
Every time there was like a knock at the door or somebody rang the doorbell, I was just like, oh God, don't get it. Oh God, no. Like the tension in this show, even though the characters are happy.
Have you ever opened your door in real life?
No.
Yeah,
I didn't think so.
gotta try it. There's a lot of mail stacked up outside of your door.
I wouldn't know.
It's off in the mailman. When are we going to get into the Locke side of stuff in this show? Like, obviously, everyone's making new keys. Who's making new locks?
Oh, good question. And how do you make them? I want to find out.
Much harder to just throw together a lock, I guess.
So, but we do find out in that scene that Ellie, lets us know that it's been 3 months, that eventually they're going to have to give up on Ellie after 5 years, but it's already probably too late. That's also where we get info that Rufus is in Nebraska and he's doing well. So it was nice to get a brief mention of him.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Brian in the scene with Duncan. This is a character who shows up in the comics. Very different here. In the comics, he is like this very squat, angry looking, balding man. Here, he's very handsome, so different there. But I like this character, and I know we're probably not going to see him as he's leaving for Japan for the rest of the season.
Literally, he's like, great to meet you. I'm off to Japan. I'm going to be back in a long time.
Yes, after whatever goes down this season goes down, I'll come back for the end of that. See you guys then.
For the wedding.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's going to come back for the wedding.
That is an ominous teaser, right? Do you think everything is going to go down at a end of season wedding at this point?
I depend. I'm curious how much Duncan's going to be a driver of the action. We don't get a lot of him. He sort of says a couple things that maybe sort of stir in the pot, and he will be living there. But if he becomes sort of a central focus, like working on Gracie is a part of the comics, the car I'm talking about,
right.
of course. So maybe that will become a thing, and we will get to hear more from Brian.
Well, the other thing we get a tease of here that they kind of slip in is Duncan's memory issues, because we found out last season.
That was like a heartbreaking. Like, yeah, it's a real mental block when it comes to this place. You think?
Yeah, all of his memories are in jars in a bag, I believe, at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's potentially something they can bring up. We also meet Abby, a new student at Matheson. She composed the music. She is
Super
gay and not into Scott, but she seems like a fun addition. That's nice.
Well, I'm curious what her role is here. For when I first saw her, I was like, ooh, maybe, because we had just seen the scene before reestablishing
Yeah, I
the
thought
rules
it
of the
was-
identity key.
yeah.
I thought
It
Eden
was a
had
new
created
person.
an identity.
Yeah, me too.
But that's clearly not the case because Eden was at the movie theater alongside her.
Right.
But that was, and I also liked reestablishing the rule that you can't take the keys from the locks, which was good and important to know.
The other thing about Abby, though, that's a little weird to me is we already have a lot of characters in the Savinis, including Zadie, played by Asha Bromfield, who we know also from over on Riverdale, and she barely does anything in this episode. I think she has like 2 lines or something like that. So packing more characters in there definitely makes me feel like, hey, we got a couple we're not doing anything with. Bring them in, have them do more things.
Or
100%.
are they bringing in more characters because there's going to be more murders?
Oh, that is a definite possibility.
I think
a
that's
good
probably
thought.
correct, Pete. But when Zadie spoke and was like, hey, should we talk about the keys? I was like, how do you know about the keys?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right. They all do. But that's how I was like, I forgot about that whole. The keys are pretty public. Someone has spilled the key tea.
Speaking of spilling things, Pete, I had a question for you here. We are introduced to a new drink sensation in this episode called the Splattering, which is OJ, Hawaiian Punch, and 3 types of schnapps, which seems like exactly the sort of thing you would make. What was your take on it? How do you feel about that recipe?
I feel good about the recipe as long as it's not too much OJ. You know what I mean? Like you want to get it in for maybe
That
color,
stuff will kill you.
but like if you do too much OJ, that's not good because you got to drink a lot of the splattering there.
Let me ask you though, real quick before you move on, Pete. Can you finish the recipe for us? They named 3 different schnapps. We don't know what they actually would be. Can you give us sort of the correct schnapps to use in this high school cocktail poison that I'm sure everyone out there wants to
That's
drink?
the thing. I mean, I would hope they put a little peach schnapps in there. I mean, that's personally
Yeah, that's the
a
obvious
favorite.
one. Go
Yeah,
on.
yeah. But you've got to get it to color red, right? So how do we get what's the schnapps combination to make red?
Isn't that the Hawaiian Punch's job?
Well, yeah. Hopefully, there's a lot of Hawaiian punch. And
Definitely
but you have
paused
orange
before that
juice
word because I wasn't sure it was the right one.
All right, Hawaiian Punch, go do your job.
Listen, Hawaiian punch. We'll put you in there, but you got to punch it up. Yeah. So I would just say peach is my favorite. You can't, schnapps are fun. Mix them up.
Nice. Great advice from
what is the future? Who
future
knows?
Dangerous father figure. I think the correct answer is whichever schnapps your parents have left in the back of their liquor cabinet.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But it's probably peach, raspberry, and vanilla, unfortunately.
Oh, you killed me with the vanilla.
Gross. I feel like we probably need to make the splattering for this podcast at some point, maybe for the last episode, to toast the finale of Lock and Key. How does that sound?
The splattering on the windshield was really nice. And I was like, okay, I can see where they got the title of this movie.
You're avoiding the fact that we're going to make this cocktail, Pete.
Pete drinks it every week.
I'll make you a crazy cocktail. Don't you worry about that. I got crazy cocktails for days.
And last thing we should probably talk about, unless there are other moments you guys want to call out, is the Skull Key. I know I joked about it being the Bowser Key, and we speculated, Justin, you and I, on the preview podcast a little bit, but what do you think is going on with this key? We don't find out in this episode, so what is your best take on what Gabe and Eden are trying to make at this point?
It's tough. I think we had speculated it just might be a full-on death key, murder key, where you can, literally turn someone off.
It's also a knife. A knife works that way, too.
It seems
Stick that in somebody, they turn off.
Well,
it seems
it's a
to
very
me like
sociopathic way of saying that, by the way.
It seems like a monster key where it kind of levels you up a little bit, turns you into this giant monster.
Another clue, we saw the skull and the skull key, and then we saw a giant rat skull. So maybe there's something there to talk about.
There could also be, I mean, I don't remember, maybe we did speculate about this before, but what if it's something to bypass the black door so they don't have to keep going back there? It's a way of getting these demons out of that dimension without having to go down to the caves, put them directly into people.
That would be cool.
Interesting. It's scary. I mean, that's what I think this show does such a good job. The keys are scary weapons, and the fact that we're introduced to a new one and it has a scary design is sort of like, this could be anything and it's going to be a problem. For whatever it is, it's going to be about getting the Locks back, getting revenge on the Locks.
Before we wrap up here, let's talk about key moments in the episode. Justin, let's go to you first. What was the key moment in the episode for you?
Great question. I mean, for me, it's the moment where there's a split between Eden and Gabe, where our villains aren't as perfectly aligned as we might have thought, which is really cool. A key moment that I'd forgot about with this show is the crunching noise that accompanies.
Oh,
so gross!
Yeah,
so gross.
Stop doing that, please.
It is so gross, and I do appreciate it. It's very fun.
I'll go next. I'll throw out the moment where Jackie starts to forget things, forgetting the matchstick key in particular. That seems like a big thing, and clearly it's a motivator for Tyler and Kinsey to get back in the key game and stop being so chill about everything. So very interested to see that going forward. And like you talked about, I believe, Justin, pretty devastating, emotional moment as well. Well played by both of the actors. What about you, Pete? What was your key moment in the episode?
I had mentioned it, but I think the Hey Rocky Road moment where she can't get Scott out of her head is going to be something that warmed to my heart in all the scary darkness. So that's kind of my flame that I'm holding on to.
All right,
nice.
There we go.
I can't believe the Gracie erasure that you just put out there.
Well,
shocking.
I didn't want to kind of repeat
Shocking.
myself. It was huge.
You're
Now,
nothing
you
if not keeping it fresh, Pete.
Pete, you can't ever repeat yourself. You're always just Peting yourself.
If you'd like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast on YouTube. Come back out. We would love to chat with you about Lock and Key, iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Lock and Key Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, keep it locked right here.
Nice. Do you think we'll ever get too old and lose the magic of this podcast?
What podcast?
No!